thank you, first of all, for having me here. One of my favourite things to do, I have to admit, one of my favourite things to do is come to schools and talk about apprenticeships, not least because I'm so utterly passionate about them and truly believe that they're a more than viable option for most people, but also because I don't think it's done nearly enough in schools as it should be. Aside from my day job, I'm lucky and fortunate enough to be chair of the London Young Apprenticeship Ambassadors Network, and we hear all the time, and we hear from so many different people that they were in school when they are in school, they just don't get that exposure to apprenticeships where they should have. So massive well done to your teachers and your careers folk for organising this. It's a great event to be part of, and yeah, massive well done. I understand we've only got 15 minutes together, so and in the grand scheme of things, that's not a huge amount of time to talk about my job and what I do and why I love it so much. But what I'm going to do, if it's okay with everyone, is quickly tell you a little bit about me and why I'm here speaking to you today, a little bit about where I work and why I love it so much, and then we'll leave the rest of the time for questions, because I have to be frank, when I was back in school and attended these sorts of events and still do today, it is the case for me that most of the learning, most of the useful, most of the interesting stuff comes in those Q&A sessions. So I'm going to do my hardest to not talk too much and for you to not just sit there and listen, but make this more of a two-way conversation. Hopefully we can get something useful out of it. It's not just you sitting there listening. So briefly about me, I'm Luke. I'm obviously currently an apprentice in the civil service, and my background very briefly is that I left school when I was 16, and this particular decision was a really hard decision for me, because I loved academia, I love being in school, and of course school is the place where you know what's what. Largely, you've got your friendship group, you know what you're going to be studying if you choose to go to sixth form or college. And so it was a really tough choice to leave school, but I decided that perhaps on balance, getting ahead of the curve and getting into the world of work that couple of years earlier was the kind of most pragmatic, useful thing to do, and I definitely don't regret it. I got good GCSEs, and then of course had the long summer, the extended summer, to think about what I wanted to do, and being candid with you all. And perhaps now that I know it's being recorded, I should reconsider saying this, but I'll say it anyway. I was a bit of a strange 16-year-old, in that I knew when I was 15 or 16 that I wanted to work in government. It was something that I just was, just latched onto and became so deeply interested in. And after doing some work experience in another government department in year 10, I knew that it was pretty much going to be my first career, come hell or high water. I was going to, try my hardest to get into it, and it just so happened that the apprenticeship was the best way to do that. So skip to present day, about 3 years later, and a couple of promotions later, I'm now lucky enough, as I say, and extremely grateful to be a policy advisor in the Cabinet Office. And I think your last presenter said she was part of the Cabinet Office as well, so you're getting a good and broad insight into the Cabinet Office here. A little bit about the Cabinet Office, because as I'm sure you've heard, it's a bit of a strange department in the civil service. So it is part of the civil service, where a lot of people call it the centre of the civil service, because where you have departments like the Department for Transport and the Department for Education, who clearly have very specific remits in transport and education and all of the things that fall under that. The Cabinet Office lines are a little bit more blurred. So we work in the centre with an oversight on all of those departments. So we have specific policy areas that might, dip into both education and transport. So instead of having one streamlined focus, we have fingers in many different pies in the Cabinet Office, and that's a really interesting thing to be, especially at the start of your career, which is one of the great things about doing an apprenticeship in the civil service. You get so much exposure to so many great ideas. But as I was saying, in the Cabinet Office, we get to We get to look broadly across all of the departments, and there are a couple of focus areas that the Cabinet Office have, among many. Some are, we work to deliver the Prime Minister's priorities, so whoever the Prime Minister is at the time will use the Cabinet Office to help deliver their priorities. Strengthening the union, which is a really important one, so strengthening the bond of the UK and making sure as a union we work as well as we can do. And also, a really important one that people tend to forget is making the civil service as best as it can be. So although we are a department in the civil service, we also look to make the civil service as a whole, as an employer, the best it can be. So that can go all the way from the HR side of things, the people side of things, to civil service efficiency and how we do our job more efficiently, and how we move out of London so we become less London centric and represent more of the UK to represent the population we serve. So a lot of these really important agendas that the government of today are currently focusing on are happening in the Cabinet Office. So it's a really exciting time to be in, not just in the Cabinet Office, but doing policy for the civil service. And my second point of why it's so exciting and why I definitely promote civil service apprenticeships particularly is that you do really get to work on these really, really interesting things. Whatever department you're in, you can pretty much guarantee that there's a policy area that's going to interest you in some respects. My current policy area is infrastructure, and I have to be honest with you, before coming into the job, I knew absolutely nothing about infrastructure. But it just so happens that it's one of the most interesting things I've ever done. So there's definitely something for you in whatever policy area you choose to do. I joined the civil service originally through an apprenticeship. So I did an apprenticeship before the one I'm doing currently now. It was in a department called the CPS, which is the Crown Prosecution Service, and I was doing criminal casework there. And you can just about imagine that as a 17-year-old, first job, you know, didn't do the average paper round, didn't do the milk round, didn't do all those things. First job, first experience in the world of work, going into criminal casework was quite a quite a jump from school. But that speaks to a really important point that I want to make, which is that one of the reasons apprenticeships in the civil service are so great is that with a little bit of initiative and some hard work, you can really do some amazing things. And like I say, you can imagine the kind of stuff I was seeing and hearing and the kind of people I was speaking to. And it was just a fantastic experience. So as an apprentice in the civil service, you get exposure to so many great things. And if that's what you're seeking, as well as, you know, a secure job, relatively good pay, and I say relatively because apprenticeships in the civil service do often pay a lot more than apprenticeships in other sectors, depending on the level. You get all of these really great benefits. And I'll return to the point that one of the amazing things about civil service apprenticeships is there's, in my 3 or a bit years, I've discovered there's a little formula to how to approach your apprenticeship, and that with a little bit of initiative and with just a tad hard work, admittedly more than a tad, but a lot of hard work, you can really, really go as far as your talent and drive takes you. And if you've got a lot of drive and you apply your initiative and you work hard, you are bound to go far in the civil service. And that's one of the amazing things about the civil service. And most other people in the civil service recognize that. Most other people in the civil service recognize that by nature, by virtue of being an apprentice, you are there to learn and develop yourself, and other people help you do that. And you're in an environment almost where fostering that learning and development nature is absolutely encouraged. So being an apprentice in the civil service, if you work hard, use your initiative and do things the right way, it's almost a fast track to a really, really good career. So if you're career orientated, an apprenticeship in the civil service is great. If you are orientated to making a change in the country you live in, civil service apprenticeships are great for that. So whatever it is your ambitions are and your drives are, as in a more personal sense, you will probably find something in a civil service apprenticeship that's for you. And an important point also is that very rarely, if ever, have I seen an apprentice in the civil service just be the apprentice, and by that I mean just be the person that makes the tea or coffee, just be the person that fixes the chairs or whatever else. It is a fallacy. It is a complete myth that if you're an apprentice in the civil service, you'll be doing the lower level work, because you don't. You really do not. And it's a myth that is stuck and withstood the test of time. But it's just not that way. And a few points in case before I stop talking and hopefully take some questions from you all is that on reflection, and I'm fortunate enough to be in the position where I can reflect on the last 3 and a bit years, is that the experiences range from talking to some really, really fantastic people, whether that is directors in the civil service who have got 30 or 40 years of experience that you can just learn from, as both as a human being and as a professional. I mean, just yesterday, I was on a call with other civil service apprentices with the Minister of State, and we were having a joke and we were having a laugh and whatever. And in those times, you forget that this is actually a really amazing thing to be doing. Another example is I've had work I do, and the presenter before spoke about this similarly, but I've had work I do go to number 10. And again, you think during the working day, okay, that's just a normal thing. But when you reflect on it, that's actually a really amazing thing, which means your work has a lot of impact, advising the ministers on decision making. And would you believe it? Because I have to be candid, I still don't. I managed to secure an externship into a missile defense company, of all things. So the point is here, among all of those things, is that one of the best things about being an apprentice in the civil service is that, like I said, if you use that formula and if you put in that hard work and use a bit of your initiative, you can almost guarantee that you're going to have some really amazing opportunities to look forward to, and some equally amazing opportunities to look back on. And your work can and this is a personal driver for me, and is what stops me from giving it all up when it gets too tough, is that your work really can honestly and truly make a difference to the country you live in and the people that live in that country. And that for me is a massive, massive driver into why I do the things I do, and the amount of work I put in. And last point is that not every job can you say, can you walk out of your virtual door at the moment, but physical door hopefully very soon, and think with sincerity that you've made a difference to the country you live, and you've made a difference to the people who live in that country. And you do get that often with being an apprentice in the civil service. And might I add, that's just being an apprentice. And an apprenticeship is the kickstart to a wonderful and blossoming career for most people. So the only way is up when you do all those things. So if it's all right with everyone, I'm going to stop there for a second. I can see we've got some questions coming in, but let's make this a conversation. If you've got any questions about what I was saying, about me, about my background, about the job I do, about the place I work, put them into chat, and I'll be happy to answer them. I'll try my best to answer them.
We've got one on the land registry. So have you got any information on that?
Oh, the land registry. Wow, that is. I don't think I've whoever asked this question, give yourself a pat on the back, because I don't think I've ever been so stumped by a question. Unfortunately, I haven't got any information on the land registry, because that falls just outside the remit of the Cabinet Office. Though I was saying, of course, that the Cabinet Office remit is broad and far, I think the land registry just stretches outside of that. But what I can do is I never like to say no to a question when someone asks me about something. So if is there any way I can follow this up?
Yeah, definitely.
Put my email in, or
yeah, I'll get Catherine to shoot you an email, and and she can get that. I'm going to have to stop you there, unfortunately, Luke, but that was absolutely brilliant. It's really nice to listen to someone that's really passionate about what they do. It's really cool.
Great. No, thank you for putting this on, and thank you for having me.